Pretty cool.
What's up?
What's up, bro? How are you?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for hopping
I've
on.
been following your stuff for a little bit. It's funny. I don't know. I don't even know how I came across your page, but yeah, I'm just in the baseball world. The algorithm slowly starts to bring you towards the
Start sprinkling that in there.
yeah, start sprinkling in there, and I just was captivated by some of your stuff just because I've been doing a lot of the conventional lifting for years. Squat, deadlift, bench, ever since I graduated college in 2018. And like I put some plyometric stuff from school that I used in college, like in my lifts, but there was nothing. And I've just been like jumping all over the place for a long time. And then I came across your stuff and I was like, oh man, this is legit. This is the exact kind of movement patterns that I'm trying to get into because I have pretty tight hips. I think like weak inner thighs. So all that stuff has really, really helped. Now, lo and behold, like I've really gotten into hot yoga recently.
Into what?
Into hot yoga. So I've been doing that stuff like twice a week, and that's also dope.
How's
too.
that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm mixing it up. Like I'm on the gym every single day now because of that stuff. Now I'm loving it. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of it. Now it's just a matter though of like, how do I start to build? I'm really looking for like, how do I incorporate that into some of the stuff that you have created, off your human athlete program, that 4-week program, because that's not something that I don't want to lose either of those. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Like how to integrate the yoga stuff with that?
Yeah, as in regards to like having an appropriate split, spending, an equal amount of time or enough time in the gym while also being able to still do some of this other stuff that I'm enjoying that is exercise based as well.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much time you have in your situation, but I would say like if specifically talking about the human athlete program, if you were to cut out the like middle optional day, basically,
Yeah,
so like session 1, session 2, 3, and then 4 and 5 are like the main days, basically. I would do that, and then if that's taking, because those I think they usually take around like 75 to 90 minutes to do sessions, right? So
yeah,
if that's a little bit too much time, then I would go usually there's set ranges that are given, right? Like 2 to 3, 1 to 3, whatever. I'll just go like the lowest set number, so that it doesn't take quite as much time. The vibe isn't quite as good, and then that'll give you a little bit of time to go and do the other stuff that you want to do.
yeah. Okay, that's helpful. I'm curious to my favorite exercise is the quad gain choices, where you're laying, you need to have the your legs up on like the barbell or underneath the barbell with the bench, and you're like kicking into the bar almost with one leg. You know what I'm saying? You know that exercise?
Wait, what? What's
The
it?
quad.
What's the
The name of the exercise in your program, in the human athlete program, I believe is called quad gain choices.
Well, I think okay. So I'll have, if there's a circuit, then I'll put just like at the top of it, I'll put like a different names. But do you know like the actual name of the YouTube video would be different because I don't have an exercise that's called that.
Dude, I don't know off the top of my head. It's actually really important because the gym that I go to, I can't put the way that it's set up, I can't put the barbell in it because there's no pins too. That's the other thing too. So
is it like reverse glute ham?
Yes, the reverse glute ham, like the way there's no pin, so I can't put the fucking bar on the squat rack to actually do the exercise itself.
And there's no glute ham there either.
And there's no glute ham there either. And I'm like able to finesse it a little bit, but the only thing is like my legs sit lower than my hips, kind of.
Uh-huh.
And like I can feel myself not getting all the energy into my quads or into my ham.
Would they have any type of box? So you do put your feet underneath the bar, right?
Yeah.
Is there any type of box? Maybe not a bench, but a box that would be equal height to the bar, because that would probably be your best.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They have boxes.
Yeah, that would be better, because then just instead of the bench, use a box, then you can make it even with the bar. And then if the bar can't move, you just move the boxes.
Sure. Okay. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious too, like of your, um, your mindset and your level of commitment and this sort of idea that you've had about doing, getting into this field or getting into this line of work and your ability to sort of stick with it. I'm a mental health counselor, and I've worked in substance use clinics. I work in a school right now with kids in New York City, and I've been like wavering in and out. And I have like these moments where I'm like, oh, this idea that this is what my life is supposed to be like, I feel very, very connected to it. And then I sort of waver out of it. And this idea where it's like, fuck this, like, this is not the job for me. This is not what I'm going to be doing. And, looking at your page, you sort of seem to be someone who has been able to sort of, even through those oscillations, like really, really stick with it. So I'm curious your take on what it means for you to be committed to this project of yours and this path of yours.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess to start, like it took some iterations to get here because I started, this whole thing for me started out as training myself to be an athlete, right? That's where it first started. And then as I was getting towards the end of that, then I started a baseball business where I was doing like skill work and I was also doing strength training. I was doing that type of things for baseball players only, right? That took me, and that was online. And then it took me into training people in person. I was specifically doing skill work. And then we also did strength work and stuff at an in-person facility.
Yeah.
And then that finally took me to DAC Performance and Health, which is what I'm doing now, which that was like, I learned like, okay, I don't really want to do just baseball players. I don't really want to do skill work anymore. I don't necessarily want to be the person that's on the floor in an in-person training facility 8 hours a day, like telling people, doing that. So I knew I had started to do some things where I was like, I know that these aren't what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then I was basically like, okay, if I can take and I can just, if I were to create a job or create a business or create a position that I would actually want to be in, what would that look like? And so that for me, that was, I can communicate whatever I want. And I'm also able to push myself personally, because where this all stems from for me is being able to push myself personally. Like if I'm not able to do that, then it doesn't feel like I can tap into that, and then I'm not able to communicate it or get it across to other people. Like my goal isn't even necessarily to get it across to other people, it's to get across to myself and to learn about it myself. And then all I do is I then talk about that, right? That's basically the process. So the reason that it's stuck is because I just like, I don't know. I guess I have been able to choose to continue to want to improve myself. And that is what is the actual driver of it. And I will definitely say there's a period of time where I didn't have that, where it's like, I wasn't really sure. I had enough losses that I wasn't as interested in it. And I was almost like antagonistic towards trying too hard. Right. Yeah. And I had to handle all of that to then get to the point where I was like, okay, I actually now feel like I'm ready to go. Yeah. And get back to that. And then that's what allowed me to kind of like invest in.
Yeah. How long is this, these process of iterations has been? What's the time span on all this?
So it was, I started my first business in 2017. That ran until, and then I had the in-person training facility from 2019 until the start of 2020. And around mid 2020 is when I stopped the first online training business. I had 3 months where we had a medical device, is like a vibration device from Germany that we use at a facility. So there's 3 months where I attempted to sell that because there's only 2 in the United States. Yeah. So like literally the day before, because this was back in 2020, so the day before you couldn't leave the country anymore, the day after that got put in, I was scheduled to go to Germany to talk to the people that made this machine to see if they were going to come here and bring a distribution facility in the United States.
That's great. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I know. Yeah. So I was doing that for 3 months, and then that didn't end up working out. And then, which I'm very happy about. And then that's when I started DAC Performance and Health, which was around the end of 2020. I'll also say there's another flip for me. Like that's when I first started to kind of like actually ask myself, what is it that I want to do? And start down that path a little bit. I'll say there's another flip for me at the end of 2021, start of 2022, where I just like, it is kind of like, okay, I'm going all in on this thing. And, things really have kind of taken off from that point.
Yeah. And that was you, putting out content, coming up with plans and, really just investing all your time in this business of yours, you'd say? You mean
Uh,
by that?
you mean the 2021, 2022 point?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Once that like flip that flip switched.
yeah. It was well, for that to flip, I had to I kind of had to take like an honest look at what I was doing,
Sure.
and if that's the way, and if that's what I want to do, and if that's the way that I want it to be,
Yeah.
right? And so once I actually did that, because for me it's like I had to make it real for myself, not do something because I was supposed to do it, not do something because someone said I was supposed to do it, or just make it look like I was doing something, but I'd be like, what the fuck do I actually want to do?
Yeah.
Like for real, what do I actually want to do? Not just say it.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah. So that's a real that's a it's a question that I like really sit with on a daily basis. And
Yeah.
I sort of stare into the abyss, and there's like nothing there. There's nothing there. So I'm curious your process in relationship to that question. What was that experience like for you? Sitting with that.
Um, I mean, I guess like allowing myself to maybe acknowledge things that I wouldn't have, that I didn't allow myself to acknowledge before. Like, because for me at that point, like I was done with sports. I was done with that. And I mean, I was still training hard, or I was still training a little bit, but so I had to be like, okay, I want a family. And in order for me to get to the point where I had a family, there were some things that had to change, right? Like I wanted a family, I wanted a wife, I wanted kids, and I wanted to have a business. I wanted to have financial freedom. I wanted to be able to have do something that was like
You can wake up and do every like you
well,
weren't miserable.
but for me, it's like do something that's big enough that I can actually have an impact on some people, like in a good way. This is where I get a little bit like, when people say it's like doing well is like ego, like you're trying to feed your ego. And I'm like, okay, good, cool. But why is it bad to want to help people by doing well yourself?
Yeah.
Because it never made sense to me. Like I want to fucking do well so I can actually help other people, be an example of that, and then actually have resources or be in a position to have some influence where I can actually help a person.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad that someone does really well. If you're ethical, if you do it in a way that is like you're following what it is that is legal, like that's legal.
Yeah.
You put yourself in a position where you can actually create and affect change. And so I don't know, for me, like I had to acknowledge that a little bit because I was just kind of like taking care of these little things. And then I like my attention was on a bunch of little things that didn't actually interest me, like all these little like naggy things, and just like it just doesn't matter. I wasn't interested in it. It wasn't a big enough thing, right? But so it is actually asking a question, allowing myself to acknowledge like I don't really like where I'm at right now. Not that I don't really like, I don't like where I'm at right now, and I don't like the way that I've been operating.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's funny because there's yeah, I mean there's a whole process for it, but there's like a day where I just like I looked at like it's kind of cliche, but just like I looked in the mirror, I was like, what the fuck? Like this doesn't.
Yeah, and that's not adding up. Yeah.
Yeah, like what is happening right now?
Yeah.
And I mean there's some specific things that I can do. I'd rather talk about those off this, but
Sure.
we can talk about that a little bit after if we end a little early. But yeah, that was kind of the starting point of
yeah. And then what would you remember like what your first like movement towards change was after that, after you were like, man,
well
once you made that that stern acknowledgement and it sunk in with you.
Yeah. Well, there's a specific day where I had to drive, and like that's basically the day where it just kind of like broke, and that's never kind of flipped. And then I mean after that it was I just started making actual changes. So like just eating different, like I mean specifically it'd be like eating different, making changes to the like what I did in my day-to-day life in terms of like, okay, actually setting myself up to sleep well. Like this is an interesting one. I used to, and I don't have an issue with it anymore, but like this was way back when I would watch something like every night before I went to bed, and like the blue light stuff. So it's like I knew at that time, again, I'm not really worried about it now, but at that time I was like super concerned with blue light and watching before bed and it fucking up my sleep, but I would still watch it, right? Or I would still be looking at blue light.
Yeah.
So there's a time period I was like, all right, I'm not doing that. And it's funny because there's like 2 weeks after I did that where I really didn't sleep. Like my body hurt. I felt terrible. It was like, I couldn't fall asleep.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. But it's like I had to go through that process and stay committed to that of like, I actually want to be able to sleep well. Right.
Yeah.
And then eventually that flipped where I was like, I had a night where I actually slept really well. I was like, holy shit, I haven't slept that well in a long time.
Yeah.
So like, that's one specific example of, I was like, this is a change that I'm going to make. This is a change that I want to make. Whatever the fuck comes up or whatever it takes, like that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this whole thing of like self-deception comes up in my head where you were like, oh, you want to be the best at something because you want to help other people. And, for me, sort of as I'm sitting here listening to you, I get in that place where it's like, oh, do you really want to do this? You want to be a therapist? You want to be a mental health counselor because of you actually, I'm standing in that similar position like you want to be really good at what you do to help other people, or you're doing it because like there is that ego thing that's sitting there floating behind you saying, if you do help someone and you make their life better, whatever, that means you're a quote unquote good person, so on and so forth. So
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like if you actually help the person, the person, you help the person.
True. Yes. I sort of, but like my identity gets tied up into it. My sense of worth and being sort of gets tied up into it. I'm very skeptical about that. And I think that's why like I've just been sitting sort of.
I know, but dude, like, okay, what actually provides value to civilization? What provides value to society? If I sit here,
you have to produce things. Yes, you have to produce.
Right. If I sit here, I feel absolutely great about myself. I just sit here and I don't do anything, but I feel great.
Yeah.
There is no value in that person.
Yes, I would agree with that because they're not contributing anything to their surrounding community. They're not sort of using their being for before the commons. Yes.
So is it true or is it false that as you do more, you are actually more beneficial to society?
And probably yes. You're definitely more beneficial.
Right, and so I don't think that's something that you have to feel bad about. It's if that's something that you don't trust or feel bad about, then there's something about what it is that. Like, and I know for me, like there would be something that you're doing that you're not really fully confident in that you wouldn't want to discuss or have open or whatever. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If everything that you're doing, it's the correct, it's right. You know exactly what it is that you're doing all the time. It's like, okay, great. I'm actually doing that thing. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad about it. Because like what I'm saying?
I hear you saying. No, I got you.
Like, no, man, you're helping people and you feel good about it. Good. Go do more.
Yeah. There's it's sort of that dual process too. Like the more you fill up your cup and the more you fill up someone else's cup, the more it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy here. So I see I hear you, man. Listen, thank you. You really have been from afar very, very helpful. It's really great watching your content and watching. I did delete Instagram. It's one of my changes, so I'm not gonna be around your page for too long. But yeah, it's just been really it's been very resourceful coming across your page, and thank you for taking the time to speak to me.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, let me end the recording here real quick.
Okay.